U.S. Farm Report on the road at the 2025 March Classic is brought to you by Grain Farmers of Ontario. For more information, find us online at the address on your screen.
Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. Well, north of the border with Grain Farmers of Ontario March Classic. Really excited to be here for some extremely timely discussions. Some of the same concerns that are happening in the U.S. are happening right here at the farm gate in Canada. Some of those concerns we're going to address today. So a great panel to do that. Let's dive right into things, because as we look right now, and if President Trump follows through on these threats of tariffs come April 2nd, do you think the market will have the same reaction that the markets had back in the beginning of March when we saw this announcement?
It's a great question, Tyne. I believe it could be even more electric than what we saw earlier. And the big reason thereof is it's coming right on the heels of the March Planning Intentions Report. So you've got that report being on a Monday this year. So the trade has a entire week ahead of that announcement leading up to the fallout or the reciprocal action of that report. So I think we could definitely see a lot of reaction, not only from the report, but then from any potential announcements thereof.
Romel?
Yep. So I agree with Neil. I think part of the challenge is that we don't know how things will play out with the reciprocal tariffs,
right,
and how these other markets are going to respond to it, right? And what happens to global economy? What happens to global demand, right? The forecast has been, right, the global economic demand is actually going to come down, right? And that's a concern too for commodity markets. So it could potentially be worse than, volatility is going to be there.
Mark, as we talked about on the show last weekend, right now we are really trading headlines. So when do we quit trading these headlines, which are changing constantly right now? When do we quit trading the headlines and get back to trading fundamentals?
Well, if the past is any example, we had 4 very volatile years from 2016 to 2000 under President Trump's first term. I don't see that ending. He loves the volatility. He loves the uncertainty in the marketplaces, and I believe that's going to continue for 4 years.
Ramon, how long does it take from the time that tariffs are announced or actually implemented till the time that it then trickles down and impacts prices that farmers in these rooms are paying?
Right. It would depend on, of course, the markets and how they respond, right? Sometimes it can happen even before, right, in anticipation of. Right? But the mechanisms are going to be essentially, if we have a 25% across the board tariff, right? If you think about even on potash, that's going to have an impact on the U.S. farmers, right? In terms of the cost. If you think about also, 25% tariffs on food and beverages, which, our producers, export to the U.S. and our farmers actually supply to the food and beverages industries, that's going to have an impact too. So it can have a ripple down effect through these mechanisms, and potentially we could see within a few months prices, coming up essentially.
The problem is we don't even know what level of tariff possibly we're going to see on things like fertilizer. It kind of keeps changing. The target keeps moving. And so as we look, though, at even the fundamentals of fertilizer today, are we seeing certain fertilizer prices trend higher?
Yeah, I think across the board, some of that has to do with supply, but certainly prices have stayed firm year over year, continue to. Ramel just mentioned potash, and obviously a lot of potash comes out of Canada, and specifically into the U.S. I think right now a lot with the uncertainty of refilling those markets, that's what we're hearing more than anything is just what is the price going to be at the time that we get there and get ready for refill. But that said, supply is very tight. UAN specifically, a tight market, depending on what acreage looks like for corn in the U.S. A lot of discussion around 94 to 95 million acres. That could get tighter yet. Early spring could get tighter yet. So yeah, definitely some supply side things that are making the market very, very tight on the fertilizer side.
Mark?
I'd add to what Neil said. The acreage is going to be a big number in the U.S. The average guess is 94 million. I think it's going to be above 95 million. The more acres we have, of course, this is weather dependent, will depend on how much fertilizer we can get and the cost of that fertilizer.
North of 95 million?
North of 95.
I believe
Ramel?
that.
So, let's think about other, inputs too, machineries, right? I mean, there's a lot of, components that move between, US and Canada. And what essentially is going to happen if we start putting tariffs and counter tariffs, cost of machinery is going to go up. That's another important, consideration. And then, of course, seeds. Seeds are something that, we trade quite a lot. So those costs are going to go up as well.
Yeah, the cost picture, there's so much changing. We have a lot more to talk about. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report.